Inshallah, today I want to share with you something that has got me to memorize Quran much more often and also got me to learn to read Arabic much faster. And this is especially true if you're someone who's kind of learning on your own pace. You're not in like a school or a program and you're kind of just relying on your discipline. I'm not even going to try to waste your time. This app is called a habit tracker. Now, before you're like, what the hell is this dude talking about? Let me just explain for a second. I used to get really sucked into time wasting, especially on like video games like NBA 2K or, using my phone and stuff like that. So I would memorize Quran pretty inconsistently. And I remember I had a period where like intensively researched online what gets people to like actually do better habits, what gets people to like consistently memorize Quran for longer durations of time, day in and day out, memorize Quran rather than just this inconsistency. And there was this very famous book apparently that got published by actually a Western scientist. In the book, he talked about something called a habit tracker, where apparently there's tons of like research showing that if you're trying to break a bad habit or if you're trying to implement a good habit consistently, having the data in front of you, having like how long you've memorized for, having how often you're memorizing right in front of you, will actually sway your behavior to start memorizing more. But essentially, in our circumstances, if we're trying to just increase how much we memorize Quran for, this can be extremely useful. Before having a habit tracker, I didn't really actually have like a program or like a routine around memorizing Quran. I would kind of just memorize whenever I was like motivated to, or if I saw some like motivating YouTube video or like Islamic reminder, then I might start memorizing. But doing this will make it so you memorize like an extremely inconsistently. It will be like an extremely rare circumstance where you actually sit down and memorize for like 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or something like that. Whereas when you actually get on one of these trackers, at least in my experience, it puts you in like a program where like you are much more likely to just day in, day out, knock out like 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours of memorizing. And in the long haul, in like the 1 year span, 6 month span, that dramatically increases how much of the Quran you've memorized, inshallah. So this is what mine looks like. As you can see, there's some days where I hit the goal of like a full 2 hour memorization. Some days I don't hit the goal. But you can see that when you actually do this, it makes it like, at least again in my experience, it makes it much more likely where like day in and day out, at least you're trying. Whereas before you might not even like have been on a consistent routine. The point of all these habits and like tactics and all these apps is to just dramatically sway the odds of us doing the action of us memorizing as much Quran as possible before our time in this dunya is up. Because a lot of memorizing the Quran, at least in my experience and like with the people I've talked to, a lot of it comes down to like the behavior change. We all know it's way easier to get sucked into the negative habits, the bad habits of just time wasting, rather than like the productive habits of memorizing Quran and stuff like that. But when you have one of these habit trackers, it makes it just even more likely for you to do the right behavior instead of the wrong behavior, and just maybe like a 10%, maybe a 15% increase in you choosing the right decision, you dedicating more time to memorizing the Quran. Over the course of a year, you will have memorized so much more just by maybe something as simple as a habit tracker. One of the next big apps I had on my phone to help me with memorization, even retention with Quran, and even in Arabic, to be honest, is this app called Quran Pro, which is essentially, if you've ever heard of Spotify, this is like Spotify for the Quran, where you can choose any reciter you want, and you can turn off your phone and just have whatever, listen throughout your day while you're walking, working, doing whatever. And there was a point where I actually memorized a lot of the beginning of Salat al-Imran just from doing like apps like Uber and stuff around my area, but I would have the headphone in and I would just listen to Quran for hours out of the day. And there's even, I think I heard stories of people in Egypt and North Africa specifically, where it's very popular to do taxi, where the taxi driver will have the Quran playing in their ear, and they've actually memorized the entire Quran because their whole career, imagine like for hours a day for years and years, they just had the Quran playing on the radio or in their ear. So like we can still do this with like technology that we have on our iPhones. One of the apps I use is called Quran Pro, and even in Salat al-Imran, it's a very popular area who remember Allah standing while sitting or lying on their sides and give thought to the creation of the heavens and the earth. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. This is like how you actually do this in real life. Like you just have this, always have it playing in your house, in your ear while you're walking, and now you'd be surprised you can actually memorize a lot like this, because there's even studies you see here that listening and memory are like really closely linked. There's multiple senses of memory. You can actually even write, you can draw, and you can memorize that way. You can read and memorize that way, or you can listen and do it. In countries like Mauritania, when they're memorizing the Quran, they say it, and then they also write it on a board. The more forms of memorizing you do, the stronger your memory will be, inshallah. So if you actually make it a habit to listen to the Quran more often, I can almost guarantee you, bi'idhnillah, that you will start retaining, memorizing, and you will just build more of a connection with the Quran, inshallah. Another app I use to really this actually, I think everyone needs to get this app, bro. It's called Block Site. This is basically meant to get your screen time down, because the average screen time, especially on like entertainment, things that are pointless, is like up to 8 hours a day. A lot of people are wasting, hella time. I've even done this too, where you just waste a lot of time scrolling, doing pointless things. And if you just memorize, like imagine if we were able to memorize the Quran 8 hours a day, everyone would do like a hufad in like 6 months. That'd be crazy, right? But instead, a lot of like we just kind of wasted time on these stupid little devices. So yeah, this app helped me dramatically actually get my screen time down from like it used to be really high, and then it got a little bit lower just from downloading this, because whenever you open an app, it'll literally just not let you use it. It'll just say you can't use it, and then when you see that little notification, you'll be like, I might as well start memorizing Quran if I can't use this app, right? So it's just redirecting your attention and swaying your behavior. And yeah, do you think that these apps are apps I all have on my phone that I use basically daily, that I believe like have got me to memorize more often, and that have helped me dramatically. So inshallah, they're all free. There's multiple apps like this. You don't have to use the exact apps. You can use whatever app you want. But these are like the three kind of types of apps that have dramatically helped me retain and memorize more Quran. So yeah, inshallah that helped. Assalamu alaikum.